My name is Dennis Pravinsky. I'm a resident of Brandon for 40 years, maybe longer. And I used to be a social worker, and I worked for the Department of Manitoba Justice. And in 2011, I retired and spend my time doing house renovations here, and now I'm concentrating on wood turning. So I make all my own bowls, and I sell a lot of them and display a lot of them in the house here. And I'm also filming my process and putting that on YouTube. So I've got my own YouTube channel. And I started this YouTube channel because my grandson in Houston said, "Grandpa, why don't you put up your own YouTube channel about how you do the bowls? That's quite interesting." And he says, "You can call yourself Grandpa Dennis," which is what I'm doing. So I'm Grandpa Dennis the wood turner.
That's great.
I've been turning wood for 30 years, and I consider myself an expert in the tools and an expert in the techniques, but I'm near the bottom of the scale in terms of the skill to actually perform and to do the work at a high level. I can get it done, but I'm not as good as some of the real professional wood turners, and the quality isn't really to my standard. It's not great. It's up there, but so I know what to do, and I know the tools to use to do it, and I'm pretty good at that. But when it comes time to actually performing, it's a little bit different.
It's an interesting perspective, I guess, as you know more about it and hold yourself to a higher standard compared to an outsider, where I'm amazed by what you've done.
Well, yeah, because I know so much about how it should be done, more than most people. So you kind of get to know what you should be doing. It's kind of like, I guess, the people that make hot rod cars. There's ones that I look at and I'm just amazed how beautiful they are, and yet the guy that made them says, "Well, the paint isn't quite right." Well, I think it's perfect, but so you're right. You're exactly right.
How did you start? How did you learn this process?
I started a woodworking club here in Brandon years and years ago, like 35 years ago, and every month we tried to bring a guest in to give us a bit of a demonstration, and there was a couple dozen of us, and most of the time it was held in my shop. And one year I invited a guy from Winnipeg to come out, and he was a wood turner. And wow, this is kind of cool. I had a lathe, but I used it only for sanding. I attached a sanding disc onto it and sanded my woodworking with it. But when he came out and showed me how to do that, I thought this was cool, so I started getting more into it. And then it got to the point where the lathe that I had just wasn't up to snuff. So I thought I would get a bigger one, a better one, but I didn't want to pay the $3,000 or $4,000 for a new lathe. I can make my own, and it's always cheaper to make your own. Boy, did I learn. It ended up costing me 4 or 5 times what a new lathe would have cost.
Wow.
But I've now got one that is as big as anything in the world for wood turning. It's got features that a lot of lathes don't have, but it costs money. So I'm telling people, don't ever make your own. Go and buy one.
Let's go.
Now that was about 3 or 4 minutes, and all I did was take down from here to here that little bit, maybe 3/4 of an inch of the bottom, and that took 3 or 4 minutes to do. So it's a long process. It takes quite a bit of time.
Custom make a lot of the stuff that you work with?
There's a lot of tools that I've made, a lot of different attachments, different processes that I have more or less invented, techniques for sharpening, jigs, that kind of thing. So I enjoy doing that. It's puttering around, making things. Whenever I've got a problem or something that isn't very convenient or is time consuming, I try and figure out a way to make it simpler and to make it more convenient and faster. So yes, a lot of things I've sort of rejigged. I used to go to craft store sales events, mainly in the fall, and it was just a lot of stress and a lot of time consuming, packing and unpacking and sitting for days at a table, and I just gave up on that. It's just not something I enjoyed towards the end. However, the craft sales were good enough to me that I basically purchased all of my tools through the craft sales. So, and it also gave me a chance to purchase the tools before I retired so that I had them and I knew how to use them. So that's something that I think a lot of retired people, they think, once I retire, I'll buy a number of tools and start making stuff. Well, it's very expensive, and you don't know how to use them. And you're retired already, it's kind of late to start learning, but a lot of people do that.
And how much time do you spend working in your studio?
I generally spend probably 3 or 4 hours a day, if you average them out. 3 or 4 hours a day at the wood turning, a couple hours a day at cleaning and maybe making other items, and then 3 or so hours a day watching hockey and football.
Yeah. So along with wood turning and yard maintenance, do you have any other hobbies?
Well, a few years back I dabbled in painting and did some acrylic paints, and I've got a few pictures around the house that I've done, and I've got two interesting ones that are the halfway trees going towards Winnipeg. So I've painted one going to Winnipeg and one coming from Winnipeg. So I put them in my shop so that people could see them as they walk in. This is my favorite painting. And the bubbly part is with, I put acrylic down and made a few different colors and then sprinkled a little bit of silicone in the paint, and it's bubbled like that. And I was doing a lot of fly fishing. I haven't in the last couple of years. So when I do fly fishing, I also tie my own flies. So I made a cupboard for all my fly tying equipment, and when I'm finished tying flies, I just pack it up and it becomes a piece of furniture. If you want to get a close-up of this, see how smooth that part is, and this part, and this is all jagged. And you get a nice smooth feel and sound coming out of here, and you get this coarse, rough sound coming out of that part. And that's because you're moving too quickly with the tool and it starts chattering like that and taking chunks of resin out. You don't want that. You want it nice and smooth so that when you polish it, it comes out like that.
I watched your latest video on the bird's eye bowl, and the base had fallen off when
Oh,
you were
yeah.
working on that.
Yeah.
Are there challenges like that or other ones that you encounter?
Oh, there's been a few where the bowl completely blew up as it was coming off the lathe. So I ended up putting it back together again and recasting part of it in resin, and it ended up being nicer than when it originally was on the piece of wood. So that raises an interesting point for me. When I got into wood turning in the beginning and decided to go into the YouTube channel area, a lot of the impetus for that was the fact that I was, at that time, 72 years old. I'm 74 now. And when I retired from working in the government for 40 years, I left with a lot of knowledge and experience. And the day after I retired, that knowledge and experience was not available to the government or the people of Manitoba. It was gone because I wasn't there anymore. And I thought, that's a shame. Not that people should take all of my knowledge and experience and use it to do the same thing, but use it to improve. So take all of my knowledge and experience and build on it. But no, they have to start all over again, gaining knowledge and experience. I know that what I did in the past doesn't work today, but it's something that you could look at and build on to improve for today's world. And I thought I need to do that with my wood turning. I've got a lot of knowledge and experience, and I want to share that. And share it so that people could learn what I did and improve on it and do it better. As an example, when that bowl fell off the lathe, or broke and fell off the lathe, one of the people in the comments said, "You should have done this and this." And my response is, yeah, I should have, and I'm going to learn from that a little bit more. But then what's the fun of not having a bowl flying off the lathe? So, it's experiences, and some of it has to be fun. So what I'm saying is, not only am I wood turning, but I've got knowledge and experience on life. I'm 74 years old, and I think I could share that with people. So when the bowl fell off the lathe once, a previous video of mine, and exploded, I took it and made something nicer out of it. So I said, I've got something to say. When you've got a relationship in life that you've had for a while and it comes apart, so you abandon it, work on it. Work on that relationship, and you'll end up with a better relationship than what you started. So that's a life experience. So to that point, I've got to somehow introduce all my videos. So what I ended up doing was writing a song, getting the music for the song together, and putting it as the intro to my videos. Grandpa Dennis is turning. I'm all right, 'cause I'm okay. Doesn't matter if my beard is gray. Just listen, I have something to say. Grandpa Dennis is turning. I'm all right, 'cause I'm okay. And this old goat has something to say. So just keep learning from Grandpa Dennis's turning. And the song really talks about, I might be old and gray, but I've got something to say. So I've got experience and I want to pass that on. So what I was trying to do in each of my videos is take the wood turning experiences and problems that show up in wood turning and turn that into a life experience, how they're connected. So everything is all interconnected in my world. So what falls apart here, you can make the case for how you can live your life better by doing this. So that's kind of it's more complicated than just wood turning. And you know, some things that I thought were easy on wood turning, oh, all I have to do is do this and cut that. And I end up spending 2 or 3 hours on it just to make what I thought was a 5-minute job. You know, I got something to say. Life is like that. Put the energy into it. Don't give up on something immediately. It's going to work out, and just keep at it. So when something you think is going to take a few minutes to do, and it ends up being 2 hours, hey, that's what life's all about.
Can you show me any of your favorite pieces or some of your recent
Sure.
work?
So this is what's called a burl cap. That's what it looks like on the tree. This is an additional piece of walnut that's a base that I'd put on. But this is what the burl looks like. And I went and trimmed off the bottom of it and turned it into a dish with a little bit of carving on the side. This is quite dramatic in terms of there's bird's eye throughout here. All the little dots are called bird's eye. That's another interesting piece. I like to have parts that have the bark still on them. I've had some pieces that were, when I finished with them, there were more air than wood, like holes all over the place. But you have to be careful in the design of that. Mm-hmm. It has to look right. This is a similar burl cap with all these little pointy parts, but instead of turning the backside, I flattened the backside and put a Lazy Susan on here and turned the front part. So I made a dish in here, then a dish here. But in doing that, I had to put the center of the piece on the lathe here, so it's twirling around off center, then moved it here, twirling around off center. So basically this was like turning a airplane propeller. It was just whirling as it was spinning around. This piece flew off the lathe. It was attached at the back and it came off and flew across the shop. It missed me, so I was lucky about that. This is called a nesting set. So all of these came from the same piece of wood. I've always wanted to do bowls that look like they were on fire. And years ago, I was playing around with inserting stained glass in the wood. But it was really difficult to get it in and to get the shape of the glass to fit the voids in the wood. But now with the resin that I'm using, I can color the resin, and this one in particular is beautiful orange, reds, and yellows in it, so it does look like fire. This is my latest bowl, and what's nice about this is the concentration of bird's eye in there. It's quite unusual. It's very rare to have the entire piece of solid bird's eye. That's really unusual, but this was a nice piece. That's quite different. It looks like ice, which is really nice, but the wood in here is quite different. This is actually pieces of bark from oak firewood. I've used that oak firewood and put in that orangey red resin to make this look like it's on fire. Now these need to be resharpened. That's one of the benefits of having so many tools. You can just keep on going. This is the introduction clip that I'm doing for a segment on making coleslaw. Hello, I'm Dennis Pravensky, and welcome to Grandpa Dennis's kitchen. Normally, it's welcome to Grandpa Dennis's wood turning studio, but today I'm cooking. But today I'm really cooking. This is the ingredients that I'm going to be working with.
And this is the computer that you do all your editing on?
Yeah.
What program do you use?
I use a program called Final Cut Pro.
Okay.
And it's basically a professional editing program. And I think a lot of movies are made with it. I use maybe 5% of it, just as I use 5% of the computer base of its power. But what I wanted to do when I make a video for YouTube, I'll have like an hour of cutting and cutting, and then another half hour of sanding and sanding, and I can't even watch that. And that's something that I enjoy. It's just too long and boring, so I want to speed up a lot of that, but all the other editing programs were like you double the speed, and that's it. Well, it's still half an hour of wood turning. So this program allows me to speed it up by 20 times. And I can edit a lot more sophisticated with it and pull out things and join things and overlap things. And it's really interesting. Here you can see I've got just a couple of films back here last January and a few last July, and almost all of this is from November on. The largest part of my audience was for the technical pieces on sharpening tips and storage for tools and the things that I made that were unique and unique processes that speed things up for people. So the wood turners really grabbed that. The ordinary Joe that's watching enjoys to see how the bowl is made, and I think people are enjoying how to make a sub sandwich. And I try to make it with some humor in it as well, because it's all about fun. pretty slick. Well, instead of complaining about being old and saying, oh gosh, everything aches, or what most people are doing, oh no, no, yeah, I'm 74, but you know, I feel like I'm 80 and I think, or not 80, I feel like I'm 50. And you know, I'm going to insist that I'm only 60 years old and I'll do whatever I want to do. No, that ain't me. I'm 74 and I'm proud of being 74. That's what I am, and I'm not going to deny it, and I'm not going to try and downplay it. I'm going to do whatever I can physically do, and what I can't physically do, then so be it. But I'm 74 and I'm proud of being that old. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. And the shape, I like the shape. Wow. I think that's cool. For a surprise, that's pretty darn good. So the whole thing revolves for me, not the whole thing, but a lot of this revolves around, I've got a problem, how do I solve it? And what can I make that's convenient, is useful, but yet has some beauty to it as well? Like all of my furniture was made to be functional, but yet be nice. But it had to be functional. So design something for what you need and do the homework to make sure that this fits in your location or fits the purpose you want it. Mm-hmm. Don't design it because it's convenient. It doesn't take much more to figure out what's the end use of this? How will I use it? When I come up to it, where do I grab it? Do I grab it here or down here? You know, like all it takes is moving the handle up to a height that's proper. You know, it's stuff like that that all of my things that I've done are all based upon that. I try and test it out, and then I work it in my mind from the sheet of plywood or whatever I'm using all the way to the very end, and then I plot it out going backwards. So it's forwards and then backwards. So everything I do is like that. It's just a way of a philosophy for everything. So, you know, not many people can do that, or I think it's training, and it's just, you know, getting your mind to work that way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's me, and this is what I do now.
Yeah, well, it's fantastic, and I appreciate your time showing me around what you've put together and how you do it. It's a fantastic process.
Well, you're welcome. So that's all she wrote.